From the moment the studio doors slid open, Mia Santos felt the air shift, like the world was quietly holding its breath just for her. She was small, almost fragile-looking, with a guitar strapped across her back that seemed too big for her slender frame. But her eyes held something unmistakable, a storm of hope and fear colliding in the same heartbeat. And for the first time in her life, she was walking toward a stage not for survival, not for someone else's dreams, but for her own. Back home in the Philippines, Mia worked 3 jobs: caregiver, cashier, singer at a seaside cafe. Each one stitched into her days like patches in a worn quilt. She'd once dreamed of concerts, of music halls and bright lights, but life had nudged her firmly in another direction. Her mother's illness needed treatment, her younger brother needed school fees, and dreams, Mia had decided long ago, were luxuries people like her didn't get to keep. Yet something about this moment, this opportunity, felt like an invisible hand guiding her forward. As she walked backstage at America's Got Talent, she kept hearing her mother's voice in her mind, soft but steady. Anak, when life gives you 2 voices, choose the one that speaks truth. Mia always wondered what that meant, but today it made sense. She didn't just have a singing voice, she had the voice of someone who had endured, someone who had loved, someone who had sacrificed so much for people who had no idea she wanted more than what life had handed her. 2 voices, one melodic, one human. Both were hers. The backstage bustle swirled around her, tech crews darting by, performers stretching, a child practicing magic tricks with trembling hands. Mia stood still, absorbing it all. She reached into her pocket and felt the folded hospital bill she always carried, not out of fear but out of purpose. It reminded her why she kept pushing, kept hoping, even when hope felt impossibly heavy. "You're up next," a crew member smiled, touching her shoulder. Gently, Mia stepped forward, each movement tiny but monumental. The stage lights burst open before her, warm and blinding. The audience murmur softened into anticipation. And at the judges' table, Simon Cowell looked up at her with that unreadable expression of his, part curiosity, part skepticism, part silent challenge. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mia Santos," she replied, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. "And what brings you to act?" She hesitated, feeling the weight of truth pressing against her ribs. "My family," she said simply, "and a promise I made to myself a long time ago." The crowd leaned in. Simon narrowed his eyes, not unkindly. "Go on," Mia inhaled deeply. "I promised myself that no matter how hard life became, I would never let my voice fade." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't rehearsed, it was raw, and it rippled through the room like the first note of a song you didn't know you needed to hear. She strummed her guitar, one soft chord, and then she began to sing. Her voice was delicate at first, almost whisper-soft, carrying the ache of 1,000 unspoken stories. It was the voice of someone who had learned to be gentle because life rarely was. But halfway through the song she took another breath, deeper this time, and let her second voice rise, the powerful one, the fierce one, the one shaped by every night she spent cooking dinner before, rushing to another shift. Every tear she hid from her family so they wouldn't worry. Every dream she buried so others could live theirs. It wasn't just singing, it was surrender, it was confession. It was liberation disguised as melody. The audience rose to their feet before she even hit the final note. Simon Cowell's mouth fell open, stunned, not just by the technical power of her voice, but by something more elusive. Mia had sung like someone who had lived the lyrics long before she ever wrote them, but just as she prepared to breathe again, an unexpected sound came from backstage. A crash followed by frantic shuffling. Mia's eyes widened. It was Alex, the little magician she'd met earlier, now sitting on the floor with his props spilled everywhere, tears welling up in his eyes. He was up next, and his nerves had finally overtaken him. Something in Mia's heart tugged. She looked back at the judges who were still processing what they had just witnessed. She could have basked in the moment, soaked in every second of applause. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped away from the microphone and hurried toward Alex. The stage crew froze, confused. The audience murmured. But Mia knelt before him, her hands gentle as she helped gather his scattered cards, coins, and trick boxes. "Hey," she whispered, offering him a warm smile that steadied the trembling of his small shoulders. "You're going to be amazing, but I messed everything up," he stuttered. "No," she said firmly. "You just had a moment. Everyone has moments. What matters is what you do next. But everyone's watching." She squeezed his hand. "Then show them your courage, just like you showed me backstage." Something shifted inside the boy's tear-filled eyes. The shaking slowed. His breathing evened out. Mia helped him to his feet, brushed dust off his jacket, and guided him toward the entrance of the stage. When the crew signaled he had 1 minute before performing, she gave him a small nod, steady, reassuring, unbreakable. Only then did she walk back onto the stage, unsure of what the judges would say. She had interrupted her own triumph, forfeited attention most contestants would cling to with both hands. But she couldn't do otherwise. Compassion, she had learned, was not a detour, it was the path itself. Simon looked at her with a new expression, something softer than his usual judging gaze. That, he said slowly, was extraordinary. Mia blinked. The song, everything, he replied. Your voice, your presence, and what you just did for that boy. You didn't have to do any of that, yet you did. And we all saw it. The audience erupted again, not for the high notes or the dramatic finish, but for the human moment that unfolded in real time, without script or expectation. You have something rare, Simon added, a gift not just of talent but of heart, and that is what moves people. Mia felt tears prick her eyes, not from pride, but from the overwhelming realization that the smallest kindnesses often echo the loudest. She'd spent so many years helping others quietly, invisibly, never imagining those acts held value beyond survival. But here, under the brightest lights she'd ever seen, the truth landed gently. Sometimes the world doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to be kind. When Simon pressed the golden buzzer, the blast of golden confetti rained down like blessings she never expected but always needed. Mia stood there, hands to her face, shaking with disbelief and gratitude. But even as the crowd roared and the lights glittered around her, her gaze drifted to the side stage, where Alex watched with shining eyes, confidence restored. He gave her a shy thumbs up, and that, more than the confetti, more than the applause, filled her with a warmth so deep she felt it could carry her all the way home. For the next few minutes, the world wasn't divided by borders or languages or differences. It was united by something simple, something universal. One woman, two voices, and a single act of compassion that rippled farther than any microphone ever could. And as Mia walked off the stage, she realized that every choice she had made, every sacrifice, every moment she doubted herself, had led her here, not just to chase a dream, but to inspire others to keep believing in theirs, because sometimes the most powerful performances aren't the ones sung, but the ones lived.